All right, beautiful. Let us start this week's recording with the topic is Nick.
It's not Nick. It's the predicted finals matchup and result. Are we going to predict like series as well? Like if we pick two people, we're going to say it's done in five, done in six. You want to do that?
We're just picking the finals. How many games, right? Who's going to be there and how many games, and who will
Yeah,
win this
let's do it.
2022 NBA championship? So, it was it was actually a really good topic. I enjoyed this topic. It was put a bit of thinking into it, a bit of researching, a little bit of numbers.
Oh yeah, I got to get my
I guess let's start
stuff
with
up.
the East. All right, start with the East. I think I've been consistent with this pick all year round. Even at the start of the season, I picked this team to be in the finals. At the moment, they're sitting second in the East. I think there's definitely contenders to come out of the East. I think that's the thing. This year's East is so deep; it's actually ridiculous. I think even like the Nets at the moment sitting eighth, and who knows which way the Kyrie mandate goes? Who knows if Ben Simmons is going to come back or not, and how he will come back? They could definitely rocket up there and be in the Eastern Conference Finals. And who knows? They've definitely got talented players and veterans on that team that have been there and done that before. So it's extremely deep. But my pick, obviously, in the East has been since the start of the season the Bucks. The Bucks, I think, are chugging along at the moment. I think they got that ring last year, so they've lifted that weight off their shoulders, and now they're just looking for that repeat now, really, that two in a row. I think with the Bucks, I was looking at some of the stats here. I'll bring them up. They've got I think a third, and this might be a few days ago, but they were like third in offense and 13th in defense. And they've just been cruising along all season. It's been almost under the radar. But they're obviously sitting there at second at the moment. They still got a chance to even grab first in the East if Miami sort of stumble at the moment. Butler's injured a bit as well every second game, so they could definitely still have home court all through the East as well. I think the we're going to have a huge debate here on the West, though. That was the key point. So I was looking at all the teams on the West, and I think on the West it feels a little bit more clear cut. There's really some top tier teams that probably could win the ring. Definitely Phoenix. You guys are up there and have been up there all season. Memphis at the moment second. Warriors. Obviously, last week's debate, I said Donovan, Mitchell is not going to ever win a ring, so they're currently fourth. But I don't see Utah obviously getting to that big stage in a sense. Dallas, they're a dark horse, and Denver, and that's probably it. I think the T Wolves are probably still too
No, they're 2 years away.
inconsistent. Yeah, too inconsistent to be making that run all the way. And the Clippers, Lakers, and Pelicans that will probably be in the play-in at the moment, or maybe even the Spurs at this stage. They're obviously not really in that sort of contender status. That's the reality. So, but I think before I sort of pick my West team, I think there are a few things that I thought about what why I'm picking these teams and why they're going to be in the final. And I think the first one, and this clearly qualifies for the Bucks, is that a team that wins a championship more often than not has to have the best player on the floor. Okay, so I think Giannis definitely qualifies that. Okay, when it's a close game and you've got a highly, skilled player on the floor that's a MVP defensive player as well, obviously in Giannis, that they can change the game. They can change the outcome of the game. Just like you dropped 50 in Game 6 last year, those sort of players are critical to winning a ring more often than not. Secondly, that they have a closer. All right, so obviously again, players that can go out there and close a game. Obviously, with the Bucks, they got Middleton, Drew Holiday as well, can obviously close a game. And they've got that sort of pecking order. It's a clear pecking order, like who's going to probably be getting that ball at the end of the game in that last sort of shot situation. Obviously, things like the offensive defense, it's sustainable, balanced scoring. Okay, having players across the board that can drop 10, 15, 20 points in on any given night. Obviously, a motivation as well to win a ring. So for the Bucks getting that two in a row, and who knows, they got a window here. If they can get two in a row, they could three-peat. That's the reality. The Bucks could three-peat here if they were motivated enough to do so. And ultimately having sort of veterans, I guess, as well. Bucks at the moment, Brook Lopez is back. They're basically at full strength now. In part, they'll probably backing on that Brook Lopez would come back. That's why they dropped Cousins. Obviously Cousins was quite productive when he was with them for I think 10 days or 2 10-day stints. And they got a Barker now as well coming off the bench. So they've got the right depth there in that sort of sense, and they're coming healthy. Okay, obviously at the right time of the year too. So I guess applying all those key points that I just covered, which is why I've then made a pick for the West, looking at obviously who I thought were true contenders. And I guess looking at all the names there, all the teams there, I guess in the West, and ticking those boxes, I'm going to actually disagree with your statement last week. I think Ja is going to get to the finals this year. I'm picking the Memphis Grizzlies to make the 2022 and come out of the West finals. And for the exact points that I just covered there, they've got a player here that's obviously a superstar. He's having a superstar season, okay, and he's definitely the best player on the floor when he's switched on, and he's more often switched on than not. Let's be clear, okay. But they also have the right balance. That's the thing. They also got the right balance. They've got players across the board that can obviously score, double digits on any given night. They got shooters that can get hot. Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks is back now at the right time of the year as well. They got also the depth, and some of the veterans that are needed to sort of make that sort of run, in a sense, just like CP3 came to the Suns and sort of stabilized them and got them, to the finals last year. Steven Adams there, and obviously Kyle Anderson, and they've got the veterans there as well. Behind these sort of younger core players, and they're healthy. They've been healthy all year. I seriously wanted to consider the Warriors, but I think those Warriors have still question marks across the board on these points that I think are critical to get to that big stage. Again, today, I think Steph has rolled his ankle or some shit, hurt his foot. So again, question marks there. Draymond's still obviously not 100% either. He definitely makes a huge difference, let's be clear, but, that's why I'm picking Memphis. And the biggest key here with Memphis is they're hungry. They're clearly hungry. That's their motivation. All right, they're clearly hungry. They're a team that probably no one's really picking at this point, okay? But I think they can go all the way. So my pick here is obviously the Bucks and the Grizzlies in the 2022 finals. But like I picked at the start of the season, I'm still saying Bucks here. Bucks in 6, obviously, for this year.
It's a lot to unpack. I feel like in hindsight we should have done like one conference, then unpacked it in 2. I'm gonna go with countering the West one to begin with. So currently the Grizzlies sit at 2nd. So the way that their playoff formatting works is that, let's just pretend that the play-in doesn't exist and they verse 7. They'll beat the Timberwolves pretty handily, but the Timberwolves will get a game or 2, right? Because I think that the Timberwolves also deserve some credit for how they're playing and how it's coming together. Then they end up versing the Warriors, assuming the Warriors beat the Nuggets, which you could make a case to say the Nuggets could actually take the series against the Warriors if Jokic gets utilized properly, because that's their area of weakness. And I don't think James Wiseman coming back eventually is going to assist that. And the Grizzlies and Warriors will be a very fascinating series. But there's got to be an element of, it's the young dogs. They might be hungry, but they don't have the veteran savvy to navigate through things. Ja also hasn't been properly defended. It's not a knock. It's just, it's quite well known in regular season games. The scouting report looks different. All right, he's going right. That he's going to, off-ball cut. In the playoffs, it's legitimately like after game 1, if he gets off for 40 points, the whole goal is to not let that happen ever again. And, Desmond Bane, who's a solid shooter now, what happens when there's a little bit extra coverage because it's a playoff game? Steven Adams is probably the factor, ironically, and Jaren Jackson Jr., that's the factor that could hold them over the Warriors. But, all right, let's say they get through the Warriors and then they get to the Western Conference Finals, and they're going to verse my pick of the Suns, obviously. The Suns do match up well against them because they have 2 guards that offensively need to be considered, opposed to just one on the Memphis Grizzlies. We do have big bodies to battle with Steven Adams. We do have better role players. So I think I could agree with you that the Grizzlies could maybe make it to the Western Conference Finals, but I don't see them surpassing the Phoenix Suns. I understand the homerism that I've got going on now, but that record of 56-14 and clearly pulling away from everyone in the league, not just the Western Conference, but everyone in the league, is not by fluke. Chris Paul is currently injured, and you can say that there's injury hopes on that. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's just going to recover. I think he's taking an extra long process here because they know they've got the record locked up. It also gives other players a chance to fulfill roles on big stages that they don't normally get. Cam Johnson had that game against the Knicks where he had 38 points and hits the game winner. Cam Payne has been playing out of his mind. DeAndre Ayton probably gets a little bit more of a stat role at present. And then Devin Booker's already come back and he's showing that he's got playmaking ability and distribution throughout the last couple of games. And they're already back onto a 3-win game streak after having a little bit of a rough start. I think Phoenix wants it. I think it's the classic case if they got to the finals, they got punched in the mouth, and they want to come straight back and get it. And I think that they're in prime position to do it. It's why they've got laser focus. Injuries, we can hold it against it, but we know Chris Paul's coming back. He does have a history of having hamstring injuries, but Giannis was a fluke away from having a knee injury last year. And if any other person had that done to them, they're fucked, but he's not. And I think, yeah, that's it. Obviously, I'm going to do the Suns part for a quick. The Suns would verse the Clippers in this hypothetical universe. Even if they verse the Lakers, no one's scared of the Lakers anymore. The Lakers are just toast. The Clippers don't have anyone. That should be a 4 sweep, if not a 4-1 sweep. Then we'll end up versing the Jazz or the Mavericks. I actually think the Mavericks will upset the Jazz. I just think that's how strong the Mavericks are playing, and Luke is quite interesting. And it would be an interesting matchup, but I think that Luka is the main thing. And you can let Luka score 50 points against you, but as long as you play your team-orientated basketball, you'll be fine. Suns. I love the Suns. That's the West pick. And now I'm going to go with the East pick. Interestingly, I didn't go with the Bucks. I actually went with Miami. I think that they have a different narrative as well. So they went to the finals in 2020 or 2021, whenever the bubble season occurred, and they got punched in the mouth, and they sort of came close. I think a lot of people forget that they came 4-2. Whether or not it's a streaky season and it was a weird season and they got hot at the right time, they also played right up until essentially the new season began. Right. And so then their season performance last year was a bit underwhelming and a bit confusing, but it gave players time. Tyler Hero got to get his sophomore slump out. So did Duncan Robinson to a degree. And they've even got extra players this year, such as Max Strus, is it Caleb or Kalen Martin, one of the twins from Charlotte that was there.
Yep.
And he's having a big role as well. Bam's obviously had some sporadic injuries. Kyle Lowry's just old and has some injuries, and Jimmy Butler has injuries. But they're top of the East, and they're top of the East for a reason, very similar to Phoenix. They're a well-built team. And then you know that when Jimmy Butler comes back, it doesn't matter if that man's arm's hanging off. He's going to try to get 30 points on you in the finals, and probably will at least once or twice, and would will it too there. I think that they figured the Bucks out a little bit more, right? I would say that the 76ers should give them more of an issue. But I think as the weeks have progressed, the 76ers look like they're about to crumble anyway. I think that that's validating. I'd love to revisit my trade talk after a while, because I think they screwed up. I think James Harden is overrated, and that's going to bite them in the butt. I considered the Celtics because they're surging and they've got interesting talent, but I just don't see it coming together on a big stage. Bulls starting to drop off. Cavs have almost disappeared out of the top. Nets are obviously a dark horse, as you allude to, but I don't think it's their season. Maybe next year when Ben Simmons comes back and it all flows, it goes there. But I did want to pull up some stats as well. The reason why Miami is interesting, not that these stats are fantastic, because I'm going to read out the number of pace for Phoenix first at 99.6 points, per 100. That ranks 9th in the league. 4 points less, which is Miami, at 95.9. That puts them at 29th in pace, so the second slowest team in the league. That's sustainable basketball in the playoffs, because fast break teams, it just doesn't correlate. It never does. That's one factor. The second would be is that they have a top 5 defense for Miami, obviously in a top 10 offense. Again, we're splitting hairs on these numbers because they don't fluctuate very much. But also Phoenix has a 4th ranked offense and a 3rd ranked defense, and is the only team to have a top 5 in both categories. The net rating, which is how much they beat people by, is a +8, opposed to Miami's +4. But I mean, Miami's +4 is still 6th in the league as well. I really sincerely think that Phoenix has to get it this year. If we don't get it this year, the window is definitely closed. I felt like there was a window that was open last year that closed when we lost. And I think we've proved everyone even more wrong than we were expecting. And I think Miami's on their own redemption arc, and they have enough young talent to spur them through the playoffs, along with the veterans to kind of strap it all together. It's almost like, I want to say it's a little bit Spurish vibes, right? Where the core players are your older players, and then the young role players can have a lot of impact. And, Tyler Hero could be playing a Kawhi Leonard role right now. We don't know, right? He's going to score 20 a game in every single playoff game. Gets to the finals. I think that Phoenix wins in 5. I think that Phoenix has got it.
Phoenix in 5 over the Heat.
Phoenix in 5 over the Heat. It's a long rant, but it felt good because it's Phoenix.
Look, I'm going to say that Phoenix or the Heat could win the title. Absolutely. They're both first in their respective conferences. They've got the talent to do so. But I didn't pick them because their title chances hinge on quite fragile bodies. Now, obviously, let's start with Phoenix. Okay. I think you guys could go all the way if CP3 stays healthy. But unfortunately, his track record's not great. It's not. That's the reality. And his track record's even not great in key moments, key times. Okay. Look, maybe he'll come back perfectly healthy after this few weeks off and be ready to go. That'd be great to see. But I just it feels like there's still too much of a. That's why I didn't stake my pick, obviously, on CP3 being healthy. I guess that's the same that's applicable to the Heat and Jimmy Butler. This guy at the moment, I'm going on my fantasy team, and he's killing me at the moment because he misses every second game. It's crazy. And you just said that, oh, look, he'll probably suit up if it's a series and just play every game if he's got one arm. Okay, and that's probably true. He would, and they'd put him out there. But you can sort of see he's still putting up stats, but when he's not really 100%, and this would go to any player, let's be clear, he's really not as efficient and effective as he can be and has been in the past. And really, it hasn't really been his year. And I think it comes back to that point where, again, let's say it was a Heat's Bucks East final and a Suns Grizzlies West final. I think that the Bucks and the Grizzlies obviously still have a deeper team and still have the best players potentially on the floor. All right, and you can make an argument Booker's better than Ja Morant, maybe. All right, sure, okay, you could. That's definitely an argument you could make. But I think that these things are big factors to consider there. And I think you sort of played with the whole picking your brackets and things like that. To me, that was irrelevant. All right, because it doesn't matter who you draw, because at this point there's still, I think, about 10 to 12 games to go for most teams. That the more likely than not, it's still going to flip. Okay, there's going to teams that are going to end up a little bit higher than expected, and some that end up a bit lower than expected. So to pick a matchup right now is irrelevant. I guess I looked at it more so that the Bucks and the Grizzlies obviously have what it takes to get all the way through, and it's not hinged upon these players at the moment that aren't fully healthy, that are critical to their team's success as far as I'm concerned, versus, who knows, maybe Ja Morant will roll his ankle in the first game. Who knows? Okay. But I guess I'm not sort of obviously, I'm backing on the fact that they're getting healthy now and they're ready to go. Obviously get that ring right now.
Look, the injury thing is a legitimate concern, right? Because CP3 will probably pull a hamstring at some point. I think the way that I view it is his timeline is a return in the first round. Are we not confident that Phoenix can take care of the first round matchup without him? Because I think that they can wrap that up very quickly, right? And then you look at the 4-5 matchup, which we always know doesn't usually end in 4 to 5 games. It usually goes 6 or 7. They're buying time. So Chris Paul comes back with plenty of time to go. And it's irrelevant of who's playing in those matchups. That's just how that plays out. Most of the time, the 4-5 matchup is the best series because it's the closest even teamed. In terms of the Jimmy Butler factor, etc., I mean, how much of this is one of the hardest things as someone who's not involved with the organization is it medical or is it just strategic? Does Jimmy Butler need to play 82 games in a season? All right. He needs to be out there. He needs to get some sense of flow. He needs to understand how it works, but he doesn't need to play every single game. Right. The only reason why LeBron's currently playing every single game is not because of playoff push, it's because of a scoring record. Like, there's always an agenda behind things, and we don't always know what those publicly are. It's the same for Chris Paul's injury. We found out at All-Star Weekend that he had a thumb that required surgery. How did we not hear about that beforehand? It's a rhetorical question. Clearly, there's a lot of things that happen by design, right? And you also have to take things in front of you. The playoffs go for 2.5 months essentially, and my pick could be completely ruined because of injury, or it could be completely justified because of the exact same logic, right? Let's say Ja Morant does end up versing the Suns. He's torching us. They're up 2-1, and it's like, shit, he's going to win it. And then he goes down, and it's it, and it's over, and the Memphis Grizzlies completely crumble. Those hypotheticals aren't worth playing around, so we evaluate teams as they are. The Memphis Grizzlies are a young surging team, very mimicking of what the Suns did last year, where it all of a sudden is clicking, and they're going to make a really significant run. I just don't see them eclipsing other things. I think it's discrediting to the Warriors to a degree, because the Warriors have now got Draymond back, and it's been a very long time since the big three played on there. And I think that they have a gaping hole in the middle. but they do have a very solid team that I don't see how Memphis can outplay them in 7 games. You're talking about a team that went to the finals 5 times. There's a lot of like corporate knowledge there that isn't going to be undone by some youthful energy, I think. And also, do you know what the coach's name is on the Memphis Grizzlies? All right. So is that an organization that has the gumption to figure it out and outdo someone? I'm not saying Steve Kerr's a great coach either, but I'm saying like there's not a lot of practice and experience there. And unless it's a Cinderella run, right, it has to stop at some point, and I just don't see it. And then in terms of the East, you know what, the Bucks, completely reasonable to go back. One of the interesting things, I know it's a weird thing to say, but winning a championship is a catch-22, right? Where you finally get the monkey off your back and then you take a foot off the gas, or you expect a lot of the corporate knowledge to kick in at playoffs, and then maybe it doesn't, right? So there isn't the same hunger that other teams have. When you talk about who's it more important to this season, is it more important to the Bucks or the Suns? It's easy to pick the Suns because they got so close. They got, they've kept most of the team together with the right additions around them. They want to come back and win it. Whereas Bucks maybe don't have that same drive. And then the East, as you alluded to, is hard. 1 to 8 is very closely together. So is every series going to be as lopsided as it will be in the West? Probably not. So it's going to be a longer road and a harder road to get to the finals in the East than it will be in the West. The West is at least guaranteed to be difficult once you get to the Western Conference Finals.
Well, I think it's an important point to add a disclaimer here. Disclaimer 1 is Nick is a Suns fan.
What? I was hoping, I ordered some jerseys and I was hoping I could have them in the background.
And disclaimer 2, we could do a whole nother podcast on Nick's NBA conspiracy theories.
I mean, is that what we want to do? You want to do that? Or do you want to be like, was the draft rigged, and did Cleveland get paid for picks when LeBron left? Yeah, it's all right.
Well, I guess we'll find out in a few months' time who was right.
It's going to be very exciting. Hopefully I get a dinner out of it. That would be the plan.
Sounds good.
Yeah, it should be good.
All right. Well,